Are you ready for this? We're going deep on Wernher von Braun today.
The Rocket Man himself.
Yeah, exactly. The guy who, pretty much helped us get to the moon.
Yeah.
But what I'm really fascinated by is, his approach to work,
Oh, yeah.
Especially when he was leading that team that built the Saturn V rocket.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some serious lessons there about leadership and innovation, and maybe, how sometimes being too process-oriented can actually, hold you back.
Right.
And, how giving brilliant people the freedom to, do their thing can actually lead to, faster, cheaper.
But more effective.
Yeah, more effective results.
Absolutely. I think von Braun's story is like a perfect case study for that.
Yeah. So let's rewind all the way back to his childhood.
Okay.
It seems like his early life was kind of like a preview of, his whole approach to...
Yeah, his drive.
His drive, yeah.
He was obsessed with rockets from a very young age.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's this great story about him attaching fireworks to a toy wagon.
Wait, hold on. He basically built a rocket-powered toy wagon?
Pretty much. It actually got him in trouble with the police.
Oh, no.
But you can see that, that spark,
The daring.
Yeah, and that willingness to experiment even as a kid.
That's awesome. And then there's that book that really, lit the fire for him, right?
Yes, The Rocket into Interplanetary Space by Herman Oak.
Oh, yeah. Classic story. Kid gets hooked on a book and decides to make it his life's mission.
Right, except in this case, the mission was going to space.
Literally?
Yeah, Oberth's book, it laid out the theoretical foundation for space travel.
Wow.
And for von Braun, it wasn't just a book, it was like a blueprint.
For his future.
Exactly.
That's so cool. So that blueprint eventually leads him to the Verein für Raumschifffahrt.
The VFR.
Yeah, the VFR, a group of, seriously enthusiastic amateur rocketeers.
Yeah, they were like the OG space geeks.
Totally.
Yeah.
But building rockets takes money, right?
Big time.
And that's where things get kind of interesting.
Yeah, the German military saw the potential of von Braun's work, and they offered funding.
So this is where we start to see that, tension between process and individual brilliance.
Yeah.
Right. Some members of the VFR, they were totally against working with the military.
They were purists, focused on peaceful space exploration.
I can respect that.
But von Braun, he was more pragmatic.
He was like, look, I need resources to make this happen.
Exactly. He understood that to achieve his goals, he needed support.
Yeah.
Even if it came from a, controversial source.
Yeah, that's a tough call.
Oh.
I mean, ethically, it's complicated.
For sure.
But at the same time, his pragmatism allowed him to, move his research forward way faster.
Yeah, at a pace that would have been impossible otherwise.
So he's willing to, bend the rules a bit to get things done.
He's definitely not afraid to challenge the status quo.
And that kind of goes back to that whole process versus results thing.
It does. It makes you wonder, can sticking too rigidly to the process sometimes stifle innovation?
Right. It's like you're so focused on following the rules that you forget about the bigger goal.
Exactly. And in von Braun's case, accepting military funding, even with the moral implications, it ultimately allowed him to develop groundbreaking technologies.
So von Braun, with this new funding, he ends up at Quimmersdorf, right?
Right, a military research facility.
It's kind of crazy. He goes from tinkering with rockets as a hobby to leading Germany's rocket program.
In just a few years.
And he's what, in his early 20s at this point?
Yeah, he was incredibly young. It's remarkable how quickly he rose through the ranks.
I mean, leading a team of engineers and scientists pushing the boundaries of technology like that, it's impressive.
It really is. Even at that age, his leadership qualities were obvious. He inspired his team with his vision and pushed them to achieve incredible things.
It seems like this early experience really shaped his belief in empowering individuals.
Oh, absolutely. He saw firsthand how a small, dedicated team could achieve incredible things when they were given the freedom to experiment and innovate.
That's a powerful lesson. It's like the opposite of those rigid bureaucratic structures you see in so many organizations.
It is. And this is where it becomes relevant to, what we were talking about earlier.
You mean how this applies to our own work and projects?
Exactly. Imagine the possibilities if we could unlock that same level of creativity and ingenuity in our own teams.
That's a great point. But let's not forget the context here.
Right.
Von Braun's work at Quimmersdorf, it led to the development of the V2 rocket.
A technological marvel, for sure.
But also a weapon of terror.
That's the dark side of this story. The V2 caused immense destruction and suffering. It's a reminder that technological progress can have unintended consequences.
It definitely raises some tough questions about the ethics of scientific advancement. How do you reconcile von Braun's brilliance and vision with the destructive consequences of his creation?
It's a complex issue. Von Braun always maintained that he was focused on the science, on the potential for space exploration. He claimed to be horrified by the V2's use as a weapon.
But there's no denying that his work made that destructive power possible.
That's true.
And then there's his involvement with the Nazi regime.
Right.
He joined the Nazi Party, accepted an honorary rank in the SS.
It's a difficult part of his story to grapple with.
It is. His defenders argue that he made compromises to survive and continue his work.
That he was trying to navigate a dangerous political landscape.
But it still leaves us with that question. How far should we separate the man from his work?
It's a question that's still debated today, and for good reason.
Yeah. But even with this dark chapter in his past,
Yeah.
von Braun's story offers some valuable lessons about leadership and innovation, and about the importance of empowering individual talent.
Absolutely. And as we move into his time at NASA and the development of the Saturn V rocket, we'll see even more clearly how his unconventional approach led to extraordinary achievements.
So stay with us.
Yeah.
In part 2, we'll dive into von Braun's role at NASA, his leadership style during the Apollo program, and how he applied those same principles of individual brilliance to achieve what seemed impossible, landing a man on the moon.
Last time we talked about von Braun coming to America.
Yeah, it's wild to think about it.
He goes from building rockets for the German military to, leading America's space race efforts.
Talk about a career change.
Right.
So he ends up at NASA.
Yep, at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
Surrounded by, all these brilliant minds.
Yeah, all focused on beating the Soviets to the moon.
And this is where his leadership style really comes through.
Oh, absolutely.
This is where it shines.
So tell me, what made his approach so different, especially in such a high-pressure environment like NASA?
Okay, so imagine a leader who's super charismatic and inspiring.
Okay.
But what really set von Braun apart was his trust in his team's individual abilities.
So he's not a micromanager?
No, not at all. He knew that micromanaging wouldn't get them to the moon.
Right.
He needed to unleash their creativity.
So instead of rigid processes and top-down control, he's fostering a culture of freedom to experiment.
Exactly. He encouraged open communication, collaboration, and out-of-the-box thinking.
So it's almost like he's saying, here's the goal, figure out the best way to get there. Yeah, pretty much. It's a total contrast to the follow the process no matter what mentality.
Right, which is still so common.
Oh, yeah.
But we're talking about the Saturn V. This massively complex project with thousands of moving parts.
How did this hands-off approach actually work in practice?
Oh, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, let's look at the F1 engine.
Okay.
This monster was designed to power the first stage of the Saturn V.
Wow.
But its development was a nightmare. It kept having these combustion instability issues.
Combustion instability? What's that?
Basically, the engine was shaking itself apart.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Not a good thing when you're trying to launch a rocket to the moon.
Definitely not.
So what did they do?
In a more rigid, process-driven environment, the project might have been scrapped.
Really?
But von Braun had faith in his team. He gave them the resources and the freedom to experiment, iterate, and ultimately they overcame those challenges.
That's amazing. So instead of shutting down creativity when they hit a roadblock,
he doubled down on empowering his engineers to find solutions.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about, right? Fostering individual brilliance to get things done faster, cheaper, better.
Yeah.
This F1 engine story is like a textbook example of that principle in action.
It really shows how sometimes letting go of rigid processes and trusting your team's expertise can lead to breakthroughs.
Absolutely. And another great example is von Braun's approach to prototyping and testing.
Okay.
Instead of meticulously planning every detail up front, he believed in building quickly testing, often learning from failures and iterating based on those lessons.
So a more agile, adaptive approach.
Exactly. It was radical at the time, but it allowed for a much more dynamic and responsive development process.
Which is so important nowadays with everything moving so fast.
It is. And it was absolutely crucial for a project as complex as the Saturn V.
It seems like von Braun really got that failures are just stepping stones on the path to success.
As long as you create an environment where people can learn and adapt quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about his leadership style, his trust in his team, but von Braun was also a master communicator.
Oh, yeah. He was a showman.
Because to get to the moon, you need more than just brilliant engineers.
You need public support, political buy-in.
Funding.
Lots of funding.
Space exploration is not cheap.
Not at all. And von Braun understood that to get all of that, he had to capture the imagination of the American people.
He had to make them believe in the mission.
even if it seems like a distant dream.
And that's where the whole showmanship thing comes in, right?
Right.
Like, wasn't he on TV with Walt Disney talking about space travel?
He was. He knew how to sell the dream. He wrote articles, gave speeches, and painted this vivid picture of humanity's future in space.
It wasn't just about the technical stuff.
No, it was about inspiration exploration, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's such a key point.
Yeah.
He knew that to achieve these ambitious goals, you need more than just technical expertise.
You need to inspire people, build excitement, create a shared vision.
And his ability to connect with people on that emotional level.
It played a huge role in the success of the Apollo program.
But of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
No, there were setbacks.
You're talking about the Apollo 1 tragedy.
Yeah.
That must have been devastating.
The Apollo 1 fire in 1967 was a terrible loss. 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee,
Oh, wow.
lost their lives during a routine test on the launch pad.
It's a stark reminder of the risks involved in space exploration.
It was a huge blow to the program. But even in the face of such a tragedy, von Braun's leadership was incredible. He was deeply affected by the loss of the astronauts, but he knew the mission had to continue.
He understood that setbacks are inevitable,
Mm-hmm.
but giving up wasn't an option.
Exactly. He played a key role in investigating the accident, implementing changes to improve safety, and ensuring that the lessons learned from Apollo 1 would inform the rest of the program.
That's powerful. And ultimately, that perseverance paid off.
It did. Just 2.5 years later, Neil Armstrong took those historic first steps on the moon.
What an achievement.
It was monumental, a testament to the ingenuity, courage, and dedication of everyone who worked on the Apollo program.
And at the heart of it all,
Wernher von Braun.
applying his unique leadership style to make the impossible possible.
Exactly.
But we know the moon landing wasn't the end of von Braun's story.
No, he had bigger dreams.
He had his sights set on a much bigger prize.
He always saw the moon landing as a stepping stone to something even grander.
You mean Mars?
Yes, the red planet, the ultimate frontier. And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore why that dream, despite von Braun's best efforts, remained out of reach.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it, von Braun's journey. You know, from those early rocket experiments to leading the team that got us to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to his trust in individual talent.
Yeah, instead of getting bogged down in rigid processes.
Yeah, exactly. He really believed in empowering people.
To overcome obstacles and achieve extraordinary things.
But von Braun always had his sights set on an even bigger challenge. The red planet was like his ultimate goal.
His white whale.
It's fascinating that even after the moon landing, he still felt like there was so much more to do.
He saw the moon landing as just the beginning.
Really?
Oh, yeah. For him, Mars was the next logical step for humanity.
Like to become a multi-planetary species.
Exactly. A chance to establish a permanent presence beyond Earth.
And he didn't just dream about it. He actually came up with a detailed plan for a Mars mission.
He did in the late 1960s.
Wow, so what did it involve?
Well, he envisioned assembling a massive spacecraft in Earth orbit.
Okay.
Using multiple Saturn V launches.
Hold on. Multiple Saturn V launches.
Yeah, we're talking about a vehicle significantly larger than anything we've ever built.
That's mind-blowing. And it would carry a crew of dozens on a multi-year journey.
That was the plan. It was bold, ambitious.
So von Braun had already proven he could pull off the impossible.
Right.
What happened? Why didn't this Mars mission ever get off the ground?
Well, a few reasons. The political climate had changed. The public's fascination with space exploration.
It had peaked during the Apollo era.
Yeah, and it started to fade.
People were starting to question the cost.
Especially with things like the Vietnam War going on.
Right, and social unrest back home.
It's a reminder that even the most inspiring goals can be derailed by, shifting priorities and economic realities.
So the funding just wasn't there.
Not for another massive space endeavor.
I bet that was tough for von Braun.
Oh, yeah. He dedicated his life to pushing the boundaries of space exploration.
And now his ultimate dream was slipping away.
He fought hard for his Mars plan, though.
Really?
He argued that it was crucial for humanity's long-term survival.
He was thinking way ahead.
He believed that exploring other planets was essential, not just for scientific discovery.
But for our future as a species.
Exactly, but it just wasn't meant to be. Sometimes even the most visionary leaders are ahead of their time.
So what did von Braun do after NASA? Did he just retire?
He spent a few years as NASA's Deputy Associate Administrator for Planning, but it was mostly administrative. He wasn't leading those big engineering projects anymore.
That must have been hard for him.
I think so. Then, in 1972, he left NASA to join Fairchild Industries.
An aerospace company.
Yeah, some people saw it as a sign of defeat.
But he was still involved in the field he loved.
Exactly. I think it speaks to his enduring passion for space.
So even though he wasn't at NASA anymore, he never stopped believing in space exploration.
Never. He continued to write Speak Advocate for space travel.
He was really committed to that vision.
He even consulted on the movie Capricorn 1.
Really?
Which is kind of ironic because it's about a faked Mars landing.
Wow, that's a bit of a dark humor twist.
Right, but it shows that he was still thinking about Mars.
Even if it was in a fictional context.
And until his death in 1977, he held on to the hope that humanity would one day return to the moon.
And eventually venture to Mars.
That was his dream.
It's kind of a bittersweet ending.
Yeah. He achieved so much, helped us reach the moon.
But his ultimate goal remained out of reach.
It reminds us that progress isn't always linear.
And even the most brilliant minds face setbacks and disappointments.
But von Braun's story also shows the power of ambition.
Of dreaming big and never giving up.
Even when those dreams seem impossible.
So we've explored Wernher von Braun's life and work.
His triumphs and his complexities.
He achieved groundbreaking results by empowering individuals to think outside the box and push the limits of what's possible.
And he left an undeniable mark on history.
He helped us reach for the stars. And his vision continues to inspire us to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Who knows, maybe one day that vision will lead us to Mars.
Fulfilling the dream that he never got to see.
It's a fitting tribute to his legacy.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and work of Wernher von Braun.
A man who helped shape humanity's journey to the stars.
And who continues to inspire us to reach for the impossible.